We have a new number one team in college football. Let's talk about how they got there. Plus, do you have a favorite Heisman hopeful yet? We're going to start that conversation here on the show. And the SEC got its first dose of Sooner magic. We're going to talk about it all because the breakdown starts now. Welcome back to the Midweek College Football Breakdown. I'm your host, the AntMan, joined by the two guys who started this train rolling, Brandon Stevens and Dalton Miller. And guys, there are games of the week that make you wonder why you stayed up, and then there are ones that make you glad you did. And this past Saturday's was the latter, when Georgia traveled to Bama for what started off as a runaway for the Crimson Tide. Georgia making a comeback to, just to keep things interesting. A couple of big takeaways. Kalen DeBoer, broken coach, and the Crimson Tide have not lost a step, even after Nick Saban moved over to coach College Game Day. We got ourselves a new number one college football team in the nation, the Crimson Tide of Alabama. Dalton, let's start with you. Bama up 30-7 at halftime over a top five team. So my question for you is, who's stopping the Tide this year?
Man, I didn't see this coming, to be honest with you. But we've talked for years now about this Georgia defense and just how good they were, how physical they are in the trenches. And I know, we talked about it beforehand and said it last week. Props to the Unk and not Nick Saban for this one. Whoever runs the ball better. And I'm telling you, Georgia did not have an answer through the air or on the ground. It was a comeback that wasn't, and it was insane when they took the lead late. But to give up 547 yards, 41 points, Georgia hadn't given up over, they gave 188 against Clemson, 134 against Tennessee Tech, and 284 against Kentucky. Alabama just absolutely exposed this defense. I don't know. I don't know who's stopping Bama. You look at the schedule rest. I mean, they do look as though they didn't lose a beat, in my opinion. And Jalen Milroe is playing as good as anybody in the country right now, as far as he knows how to manage that team. And, I think I mentioned it to us in our group or whatever it may be. We don't know yet exactly what recruiting is going to look like for Kalen DeBoer. We don't. How many recruits is he going to get? Is he going to stay on the same path that Nick Saban was with these recruits? But we do know he can coach football. And it seems to me that if he's going to continue to win these big games, he's not going to lose a beat in recruiting, because that's who people want to go play for. After that, I was really shocked, especially with the other things that happened in the SEC. I don't see anybody slowing Bama down if they're going to play like this, because even if they give up a lead like this, they found a way to win it. And putting up 41 points on arguably the best defense in the SEC and almost 600 yards to a team that had given up only 600 yards the entire season doesn't tell me that you're going to be slowing Bama down anytime soon.
Yeah. One of the greatest comebacks that we've seen in college football. B, I want to ask you, where does Georgia go from here when they still have Texas and Ole Miss on the road and Tennessee, who is still undefeated right now as well? What are you thinking, man?
I mean, Georgia doesn't have – it's not like they have a long ways to get back to where they're at. I mean, they struggled in the first half specifically, but I mean – Carson Beck had 3 turnovers, and they end up with 4 in the game. I don't think they have a long ways to get back to, the top. I mean, they obviously didn't drop very far in the polls. Everybody knows that they played an absolute machine of a team right now in Jalen Milroe and DeBoer, and got Williams, the 17-year-old wide receiver who we've talked about several times in our group chat. I mean, that kid is a freak. They do have several tough games still coming up. I mean, they do play in the SEC. I think it's one of those things where if they take care of the ball in the first half, they probably win this game, because I don't think they would have gotten down 28-0 in the first half if they just take care of the ball. 2 of those touchdowns came after turnovers. So, not saying that they would have stopped Bama from scoring anyways, but they might have had some other chances to score in the game. I mean, they outscored Bama in the second half 17-11. So they really, I mean, they really played a good game after the first half. And despite the turnovers, they played a good game. I did think it was funny that their players after that touchdown with, what was it, like 2.5 minutes left, maybe they scored that touchdown to take the lead. And at that point, their players were turning around, giving it to the Alabama fans. And then one play on offense, Jalen Milroe hits Ryan Williams. I think it's Ryan Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jalen Milroe hits Ryan Williams on that 75-yard touchdown pass after the touchback. And that dude made some moves. I don't think Georgia has a long ways to go to get back to where they are. They just got to take care of the ball better. I mean, giving up 547 yards of total offense is something that we haven't seen from this Georgia defense in, probably 5, 6, 7 years. Nobody's put that much up on this defense. So that's an issue because that has nothing to do with the turnovers created on offense. But they'll get better week to week. Kirby Smart is a heck of a coach. He's going to get on these guys, and they're going to have a tough week of practice this week. I can promise you that. But I don't think they have far to go to get back on track. They're still, in my opinion, a playoff team. They're probably going to be in the playoffs, no doubt, unless they drop 2 or 3 more games. They're still going to be in the playoffs. I don't think they have to worry about getting in.
I think that I almost have a little bit opposite opinion because they struggled right before the bye going into Kentucky. And I'm thinking Kentucky is not a great football team right now. Just got slapped by South Carolina 31-6 at home. So what's really going on? And I believe at this point, obviously knowing what Kentucky did, I believe that they made a lot of adjustments and are a better football team than maybe we were, giving them credit for after their loss to South Carolina. But at the same time, this is 2 games where Georgia snuck away with a win against Kentucky. And I don't think, if you lose to that Kentucky team, even though I think they're a better team, Kentucky's not a playoff team this year, in my opinion. And so that's where Georgia, I believe at this point, is susceptible to lose to anybody other than Vanderbilt right now in the SEC, just because of the way they're playing. And they scored 13 points against Kentucky. Why do we believe that they wouldn't? And I understand that if they play better, they got down 30-7, and they're the ones that turned the ball over. I just think that they're not as good right now as they have been in the past. And I think that it's a tough road ahead for them because I don't know that you're going to win every game the way that you have been. Obviously, you lost a close one to Bama that wasn't close for a long time. You had a really close one to Kentucky that you couldn't pull out. What happens when you're on the road somewhere else down the line? You still got to play at Texas. I think that Georgia has a tougher road, in my opinion.
I feel like Kentucky is a better team than we gave them credit for when they held Georgia to that. Obviously, they played 2 of the top 5 teams in the country, and should have beat one and did beat the other. We'll talk about that a little further on in the thing or in the podcast. But they're 14th in the country now out of 134 teams that on points against. So I think Georgia's probably a little better than we're giving them credit for, or Kentucky's probably a little better than we're giving them credit for. But I understand your point. Georgia struggled twice, and they were lucky to come out with a win in one of those.
Yeah. Something seems a little prophetic about Alabama and a guy named Jalen, though. They seem to do well with those guys. Also, looks like they're going to do good with a guy named Ryan Williams, too. You mentioned him, B. And I want to get a little shot of this. Look at this right here. There goes the ball. Look at these moves. I swear it looks like he's on ice. Like he's on ice. Look at that. I wish they could give us slow-mo shots like this in every game. Make it look a little more like EA College Football 25.
Yeah. That was a crazy, and that was the score that put him back in the lead after Georgia had just taken the lead. First play from scrimmage on that next drive. And Ryan Williams goes to Freaktown and just makes Georgia look retarded.
Well, let's move over to some Heisman talk. We've heard his name already and will many more times throughout this season here on this show. But will it be for his name being called December 14th? For now, it's only speculation. Jalen Milroe. He's the top pick right now for the coveted Heisman Trophy. Either of you guys have any arguments against him being the favorite at the moment?
He's my number 2.
Number 2? Okay, who's your number 1?
Cam Ward.
Okay.
You put Cam Ward's stats up against both Ashanti and Travis Hunter and Jalen Milroe. He's currently got the better stats.
Yeah, my argument with that is who's he played.
Sure.
Who's he played? I mean, nobody, in my opinion, so far. I mean, last week, Virginia Tech may be the best team that Miami's played so far this year. So I don't think Cam Ward's played anybody. I mean, this is what I like to call the way too early Heisman talk,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
And I'm the one that put it in the group chat that we should talk about it. But I mean, right now, I see Jalen Milroe doing it on an elite level. I see Cam Ward doing it on an elite level. And then one guy that I don't dislike this guy, but I dislike this team. The other guy that I think is the third one right now that gets invited to the Heisman ceremony, if they're only taking 3 this year, is Travis Hunter. And Travis Hunter is a freak on both sides of the ball. We know that he just gets it done.
How could you deny a guy that plays both sides, plays literally every snap, not at least being invited?
Yeah. I don't think you can, especially with the numbers he's putting up. I mean, he's gotten a couple of turnovers on the defensive side of the ball this year. He's got several touchdowns and some amazing catches and big plays on the offensive side. I think right now he has to be the other guy. The other guy that shows up on my list is Ashton Jeanty from Boise. But again, they haven't done anything. But this kid's unbelievable right now. Through 4 games, he's got, I think it's between 850 and 900 yards rushing.
Okay.
Through 4 games this year, several touchdowns. Ashton Jeanty he's a stud. But like I said, they're not playing anybody, and I don't really expect them to play anybody that's going to hinder him this year. So they may put 4 there. And right now, they may put 4 there. My pick at the beginning of the season, I believe, was Dylan Gabriel. We talked about this, but their defense hasn't been as good as I thought. And he's putting up stats on the offensive side of the ball, but they're just not scoring for some reason.
Yeah.
Like they should with the stat lines he's putting up. So he's obviously 5th in this list that you're looking at right now. But I think right now it's Jalen Milroe, Cam Ward, and Travis Hunter. Those are my top 3 right now in that.
I noticed
order.
neither one of you have talked about a couple of that, the mainstream press is talking about, that being Nico from Tennessee and Quinn from Texas. How are you feeling about those two?
Well, Quinn is in a tough spot because how many more games is he going to miss? I mean,
true.
Plus, I mean, he just has a history for getting sacked in Red River. So, I mean, that game, if he does come back, he's screwed there. So, I don't know. Nico's good. He's not a top 5 Heisman candidate yet, in my opinion. And I think that Dylan Gabriel has time to move up.
I do too. And Dylan's got his toughest games ahead of him.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. So if he can show up against some of those elite defenses that he's going to see later on in the Big Ten, then he definitely has room to move up. I mean, Nico Iamaleava is a stud. Like, he's a stud. He does it with his feet. He does it with his arm. Makes all the throws. Seems to make the right decisions more often, way more often than not. We obviously know this because we faced him already this year. Like, he is a stud. Our defense did have some success against him. So I want to see, what he does once they get into some really tough games. And Tennessee has a tough schedule coming up. I believe they still have to play Bama and Georgia this year. So they have a tough schedule coming up.
And when you put him up against the other, 3 quarterbacks on that list, he's only got 892 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So that's why he's still lower on that list.
Yeah, and I think Quinn would probably be higher if he had played these last 3 games. But him being injured and them not, obviously using him in the offense because they have Arch Manning taking over while he's gone, that one is kind of interesting to me because I really feel like, Coach Sark comes out and says there's no quarterback controversy. Quinn is our quarterback, but how quick is the hook going to be on him?
Yes.
If he goes out and goes 3 and out a couple times in a row and then throws a pick or fumbles or something like, how quick is that hook going to be? So that'll be a very interesting one to watch as well.
Well, as you get a look at those, let us know what you think about your early predictions for the Heisman. If you're watching on YouTube right now, leave a comment for us. If you're listening to the show, you can check out the graphic on our Instagram. It's MWCF Breakdown. MWCF Breakdown. Follow us there and follow along with us and let us know what you think about who should be there at the top, and maybe pick your 3 who you would send to New York at this given time in the season. All right, after falling 1 point shy of an upset over Georgia, Kentucky bounced back and holds the most explosive offense in CFB. Ole Miss averaging 673 total yards of offense per game to only 353 yards and 17 points. That right there, a victory in and of itself, but icing on the cake, they pull off the upset too. But look at this. Kentucky still has to go through Texas. They have to go through Tennessee. They have to go through Louisville. Not an easy road by any means. They made some serious adjustments after losing to South Carolina 31-6 at home. Question for you guys. Can Kentucky sustain this style of play where they hold teams to under 20 points and, grind out a win late in the game?
I mean, I think we're naive if we say that they can't start holding teams, or we don't see them hold other teams down. I mean, they've obviously played Ole Miss. They've already played Georgia, 2 of the best teams in the SEC coming into the season. I think we're naive if we say that they can't hold teams to that. I also think we're naive if we say that they can still grind out wins on some of those. I think they're probably gonna go 9-3, maybe 8-4. I don't know. I think they beat Louisville, but I think Texas and Tennessee, they probably lose too. Those 2 offenses have been so high powered so far, and I know we say the same thing about Ole Miss, but I think we're naive to say that they can still make it into the playoff. I don't really see that with the road they have ahead of them. But like I said, I think we're silly if we think that all these teams are just going to go in and run over them, because they only gave up 353 yards in the game to a team that was averaging 47.4 points, a team that was 7th in the country in points per game, and you don't do that without gaining a ton of yards, right? So, I think both answers to your questions are yes and yes. Yes, they can keep holding teams, or yes and no. Yes, they can keep holding teams to, 20, 24 points, but no to can they grind out wins in all of those, because their offense just really hasn't shown me too much. They're 102nd out of 134 in points per game on offense. So, I don't know. Seeing is believing, I guess, for me. We'll just have to see where it goes.
Dalton, how you feeling, man?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to Kentucky figuring something out on the offensive end. Vandergraff has only thrown for just over, wasn't it 700 yards? Yeah, 793 yards. He's got 4 touchdowns on the season and 2 interceptions. Their offense is just not getting the job done where, their defense held Ole Miss to only 93 rushing yards. So you come after the game in the locker room and you're thinking, man, defensively, we did our job. You just cut the offensive production from Lane Kiffin, one of the best minds in the game, completely in half. Hasn't happened yet this year. So I think that I don't think they'll be able to grind out some of these wins, because at some point their offense is going to have to produce a little bit more, especially when you play Texas and Alabama and some of these other high power SEC schools. Even I know they made adjustments, but I could even see them, if their offense doesn't figure some stuff out, their defense gets real tired, losing the, time of possession battle. You're looking at another, 3 touchdown loss somewhere because the offense just can't put the ball in the end zone. And so that's kind of where I stand. Heck of a 2 weeks stretch, technically 3 weeks. They had to bye. Heck of a stretch though, to almost take down Georgia, to go on the road and take down Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart. But I don't think it's sustainable unless their offense does something more with the ball.
Well, we have a bye week to talk about coming up here in just a little bit. But Ole Miss this week, they go on the road to Williams-Brice Stadium at South Carolina, who absolutely handled Kentucky early on. How important is a road win for Kiffin, and is a conference title and playoff bid still in the cards? B, what are you thinking here, man?
I mean, I think that they have a chance at the playoffs still. I don't think there's no doubt that the SEC gets at least 3 teams in and maybe 4. I don't see more than that, but it's gonna be interesting to see how they fare against this South Carolina defense, who, like you said, Kentucky just rolled earlier this year. I think they still have a chance. I don't know that they can afford very many more losses. I think they probably go, at worst 9-3, which honestly, if they go 9-3, I think they still have a chance to get in because of who they are and where they're going to be. That doesn't put them in the SEC title game, I don't think, but I think there's going to be 2 teams that aren't in the SEC title game that make the playoff this year.
You have some strong feelings on this, Dalton?
I think it's a must win for Ole Miss. You lose this, it gets really hard to bounce back. And I think if they win this and get their offense back, their run game going, get their offense back to over 500 yards, how they've been doing it, I think you're going to see a confident Ole Miss to finish the season. And Ole Miss is still a very good football team, but it's SEC. And we've learned watching the SEC now, anybody is beatable. Obviously, other than you're not losing to Vanderbilt. If you lose to Vanderbilt, Missouri, almost, then are you as good as you think you are? But the SEC is the toughest conference in the nation. I stand by that because every single week you never know what's going to happen, and that's why I think that this is probably a must-win game for Ole Miss. If they still one-loss team can still play for the conference title. You lose this, you lose the conference title, and now you're only thinking playoff. And at that point, every single game gets that much more pressure on it. I think they have to take care of business this week. And the tough thing is South Carolina is not an easy place to play. South Carolina does already have a win on the road in the SEC against Kentucky, lost at home to LSU in a game they really should have won, lost by 3 there, missed a field goal. I think that this is going to be a good game, but it's a statement opportunity for Ole Miss to prove where they're at still in the SEC, because we did not see the same offense we saw. And I know it's different, but also look at the teams they played, their body of work. They dominated, but they did not play. 2 of their first opponents were horrible opponents. So they should score 77 points and have 700 yards of offense. So I still think they're really good. I think Jackson Dart's one of the best in the nation. I think Lane Kiffin is the best offensive mind in the nation, but it's a must-win game at South Carolina.
All right. Well, if you are new to the show, thank you guys for watching or listening wherever you're doing it. We are on YouTube. Find us there if you're listening somewhere, and you can see some of the stuff that we put up. First, let me say this. All 3 of us, while we may not live in Oklahoma, are Okies at heart, and we are homers for the Oklahoma Sooners. That's why we have an entire quarter dedicated to the OU Sooners. This is the OU quarter. Let's start off right here.
3rd down and 5 for Hawkins. Here are the legs where he's so dangerous. Look at Michael Hawkins go. The true freshman houses it here on the Plains.
That right there is how it started for Michael Hawkins Jr., freshman quarterback. First SEC road game. He ended up finding himself down 21-10 in the 4th quarter. But that's just a cue for Sooner magic. Let's get a little shot of that too. How about this?
Thorne. It is intercepted. Intercepted by Lewis. Kip Lewis. Could he? My oh my. Pick 6.
Not only could he did. So after coming in halfway through the Tennessee game and nearly leading the team to a comeback win, let's talk about it. MHJ. Is he him?
He's my quarterback. I'll say that.
He's it. All right.
Me too.
I just think he's a dog. He brought some life to the Sooner sidelines, to Sooner Nation that we just hadn't felt yet. And I love Brent Venable's comments after the game when he mentioned that's the first time he's really felt Sooner magic because
as a head coach.
Yeah, well, of course, as a head coach, but Michael Hawkins Jr., I think that he had his freshman moments in this game. There were some times in the pocket he was a little bit skittish. I don't know if that's the right word necessarily, but he just showed not maybe stepping up in the pocket. He took some sacks he didn't necessarily need to take, one that we really couldn't afford there in the fourth quarter. But again, he just kind of has this moxie and this swag about him that you believe that he's going to be able to make something happen. I felt that our run game was just a little bit better thanks to his threat to run the football. He made some quick throws that I think helped get him some confidence early. And of course, he made just an absolute dime to Hester late in the game that just showed some confidence as a freshman that all of us have been waiting to see. Every single one of us have been wanting to see an explosive play like that. And we finally got it. And what a heck of a catch it was by Hester. Hawkins is my guy. Hawkins is the guy I'm running with for the rest of the year, as long as he stays healthy, because he just kind of has a swagger on the field that everybody wants to follow.
Boy, can we have Joe Tessitore call every play for Oklahoma from now on? I would absolutely love if that were the case. B, how you feeling seeing that start from Hawkins?
He's him for me. That's the question you asked, so that's how I'm going to answer it. He is him for me. Just his moxie and his absolute control of himself. That's one thing I felt like Jackson Arnold didn't have, was that control, that mental control of himself. I feel like Michael Hawkins has that. And I mean, first drive on the road in the SEC as a starting quarterback, breaks the 48-yard touchdown to start the game, put us on the board early. And from there, it just kind of stuttered for a while. But we're going to have those games this year. I'm telling you, we're not going to have games where we just run the ball up and down the field on people. But we had what I would call a decent output rushing the ball. We had 130 yards on 32 carries with 2 touchdowns. The play after the J.J. Hester sets up first and goal, the play after that, Javonte Barnes basically walks into the end zone. I think any of us three could have walked into the end zone for that.
I think so too.
But I also feel like that pass after his big run, that pass really hyped up the offensive line. Yeah. And we did get Jake Taylor, our left guard, back in that game, and they ran right between him and the left tackle for that game, for that play where Javonte Barnes rushes for the touchdown. I really think that he just has brought a spark, like Dalton said, to this team. And we got to have that. We saw, everybody was like, well, Jackson Arnold's such a better passer than Michael Hawkins. I don't know that you can say that.
I don't either.
But that's what everybody in sports talk here has talked about, is why he got the nod at the beginning of the season was because he was a better passer of the ball.
Maybe in practice.
Maybe he's Tiger Woods used to call that Ranger Rick. Like I was hitting him great on the range. I was like Ranger Rick, but I didn't have that day when I was out on the course. Maybe that is the case. Maybe Michael Hawkins doesn't practice as well and doesn't show that stuff as well in practice as Jackson Arnold does. But it's easy for Jackson Arnold to show that, in my opinion, in practice, because he knows he's not going to get hit.
Right. Absolutely. Right? And he was getting hit a lot in games.
Hit a lot. I mean, and that's another thing that Michael Hawkins brings, is we saw he didn't really make honestly, I feel like he didn't make any mistakes. He probably made missed a couple of passes, whatever, but he didn't make the big mistake like we're used to seeing early on this season. He was able to scramble, even running way backwards, but he threw the ball away a lot. And I would rather have that. I said this last week, I would rather have him throw a couple of interceptions or something, have a fumble or something, and still look confident. He looked confident no matter what. It seemed like nothing rattled him, even in all the 3 and outs that we had. I mean, we only had 11 first downs in the game to Auburn's 26. Auburn was able to move the ball and get first downs.
Sure.
We weren't able to, but you never saw him down on the sideline. And I do want to give credit to Jackson Arnold because I did see him on the sideline being the guy that he should be. It's not like the Spencer Rattler stuff that we saw where himself. All he did was go sit by himself and pout in the corner because he was sucking.
Yep.
He was in every offensive huddle. On the sideline, he was talking to every position group, even Michael Hawkins, talking to every position group and being that teammate that we need on the sideline. Good. Michael Hawkins is him for me.
I love hearing that. Speaking of getting hit, injuries still the big red flag for the Sooners. Javonte Barnes was the solo back all game, 18 carries, 61 yards, and a touchdown. But is him as the solo back the answer for the Sooners for the rest of the season? I can't imagine that being the answer, having one guy that's going to carry the ball. What are y'all thinking?
I've been saying I would prefer to have one guy
Would you?
for the majority of the carries. I am not a fan of rotating 2 or 3 backs consistently. And I mean, this is the most production we've seen from a back this year. There's a reason. And maybe it's not going to be Barnes because we'll get some guys healthy again. I still like Taylor Tatum. And we've seen Gavin Sawchuk rush for, 150 yards in a game. So it's not that he's not capable. I just don't like the rotation of backs throughout an entire game. And honestly, you look at other schools, watch other games on Saturdays, there are not many schools that do this, and we are doing it. And so I liked Barnes. I mean, I've liked Barnes anyways. I think he hits holes pretty quick. He's a little faster, in my opinion, than Sawchuk when it comes to hitting the holes. I don't know if it's going to be him. I couldn't tell you what Seth Luttrell was going to do moving forward. I don't. But I know, in my opinion, I would love to label it like you're our first back and then our second back. And then at that point, don't go to your third back unless you need him or you have a specific package or something like that. But I loved what I saw from Javonte Barnes when, honestly, he hasn't got a ton of touches or reps or carries this year. And he steps right in with a lot of other third and fourth string guys and finds a way to get the job done.
Yeah. Brennan Thompson caught 2 passes, a couple of yards behind the line of scrimmage and exploded for 15, 16 yards on each of them. Had to be a confidence builder for Hawkins. What grade would you give the Sooners OC, Seth Luttrell? We've had a lot of off-mic conversations about this guy this season, just like our OC last year. But what would you give if you had to give a grade right now, how would you grade Seth Luttrell for his game plan against Auburn this year? B, go to you first.
Are you asking me to have that off-mic experience right here on the podcast?
We are on mic right now.
I'm just kidding. Honestly, I would probably give it a B-, maybe a C+. And here's why. I mean, coming into the week, I was giving him a strong D on everything. Yeah, or F, and we know what that stands for. But he did away with exactly what I said last week. We need less RPO. He did away with a lot of the RPO. We still ran some RPO.
Yeah.
But we didn't run a lot of RPO. In the prior weeks, especially against Tennessee, I feel like 80% of what we ran was RPO.
Yeah.
I think it probably got narrowed down to 25 or 30%. I feel like he was calling the plays that he wanted to run out of the RPO system. And it probably dumbed down our playbook a lot because he's got a lot of RPO in his playbook. Yeah. I give him a solid B-, maybe a C+, but I appreciate what he did because moving forward, we need everybody to be on the same page. And even more than that, we need everybody to know what page they're on. We can't have somebody on this is a run play page and somebody else on, no, this is a pass play page. Yeah. Right? I feel like he did that. I feel like early on in the game, he did get Michael Hawkins some confidence by throwing some of the shorter passes, building up his confidence like that, throwing some of the easier stuff. I'm not a huge fan of the wide receiver screen out to the wide side of the field because that takes a lot of time for the ball to get there, gives defense plenty of time to react. But in the same instance, I feel like he almost just ran so much of that early on because he was trying to get Michael Hawkins' confidence built up. And I feel like it worked. I feel like MHJ had the moxie and went with it. And I mean, B-, C+.
Okay. Dalton, what's your grade for him, man?
I agree with that. I wouldn't go more than a B-. And I'll say, I will say both of Brennan Thompson's wide receiver screens were to the short side of the field, which was good because he's able to catch them quick. And that's why I think he was able to get so much separation. But the areas that if he wants to get better, I think, than a B- for us, specifically me, second and third quarter, you've got to find a way to put the ball in the end zone.
Yeah.
And we only took one real shot down the field, and that was to Hester. I'd like to give Michael Hawkins Jr., Brennan Thompson, and Hester a chance earlier. Also, with the screens, I love Bauer Sharp. I do. I think he's good. He can catch it. He's got hands. He's going to run people over. But why are we running on 3rd and 10 wide receiver screens to him? He's only going to get you 4 to 6 yards. Brennan Thompson, we only threw it to him twice, and he got us 15 yards each time. Yeah. So whether you like the screens or not, why are you running it to a guy who you are not guaranteed 10 yards with? He's not fast enough. He's going to run someone over. We know that.
Sure.
But we need 10 yards here. Run that on first down to Bauer if you're going to run it to him. Let him pick up some yards and then maybe go with a quick game, which is what we did a little bit on the first 2 possessions. But yeah, he was better. He was better. Didn't like the second, the third, or the beginning of the fourth quarter at all. We really didn't have a rhythm. I just, for whatever reason, with MHJ out there, I believed every single play he had a chance to make something happen. And honestly, as an OU fan this year, even the Tennessee game, where there was a lot of excitement in the stadium, I had not felt that in a while. Like when we had that pick, like I could just feel it. Like, okay, something crazy is about to happen.
Yeah.
And I hadn't felt that this year. Go ahead.
My wife called that pick 6, by the way.
She calls all the pick 6s.
That's the second time this year she's called a pick 6.
That's insane.
And she doesn't do it. And you said this to her the other day when we were on FaceTime. She doesn't do it very often. She's like, no, I got to pick it when I think it's going to happen. I can't just say it. But she called it again. They were lining up for that play. And we said, okay, there's no way they throw the ball here. Because it's 3rd and 4.
Right.
With what? 2.5 minutes left. I don't remember how much time was left on the clock, but it's 3rd and 4. They're trying to run clock out. There was 6 minutes left, I think. And they're trying to run the clock out. No, they're going to make us use our timeouts. They're going to punt if they run it up the middle, which they had success doing, they're going to run it up the middle. If they don't, then they're going to run it to the outside, but they're going to run the clock. They're going to make us use a timeout if we want to save 40 seconds. And she's like, no, I see a pick 6 coming. And we're all like, oh my gosh. She's talking about something. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And boom, it happened again.
I would have gone nuts. Like even more nuts.
We were going crazy. Like I was at a little watch party at Grumpy and Nana's house, our good friends, our old neighbors across the street from us when we lived in Yukon before. And everybody there went to her and was like hugging her and high-fiving her. And everybody knew. She doesn't speak up very often. You both know her. She's kind of quiet. She doesn't, just speak up often in a big group setting. But she's spoken up twice this year, and both of them have been pick 6s.
She may not like this because she is a little shy, but she just got her own segment on the show. So if this happens again, we'll pull the clip and it'll be Aunt Kel's pick 6.
Okay.
I like it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'll have one more thought about Seth Luttrell and why I think he's over a C and in that B- category. And it is because of that call. That was a gutsy call late in the game for your freshman QB. You have your top 5 wide receivers are out, and you're going to say, hey, let's throw it 70 yards down the field. I appreciated that. You took a chance, you took a shot, and man, Hester's got to be feeling really good right now. So like
Absolutely.
there's a connection that he's now made. They've got some in-game chemistry. I actually think that Brennan Thompson is a little faster than Hester, and so I'd like to see us find some ways to allow him to get into the secondary and maybe get behind some guys. But I just hope that was a glimpse of what we're going to see moving forward, and that we can find a way through this bye week to incorporate moving the ball more consistently.
Yeah, we have a bookend offense right now. First and fourth, we're doing okay. Let's move over to the D side. Not as flashy of a defense this game, but in the end, they get the pick six, which we talked about, that really changed the game. Gave up 338 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. And Auburn rushed for 144 yards, but we still managed to get that pick six and 4 sacks. All those did come later in the game. Thoughts here on the D side of the line for the Sooners. Dalton, let's start with you on this one. What are you thinking, man?
For me, it seriously comes down to our third down defense. And it was early 100%. In the game. Early in the game, very second possession, right before we had that goal line stand. We score that 48-yard touchdown and get a stop, and then can't do anything. And then we have a chance we got the stop, scored the touchdown. Now we have a chance to go 3 and out again. It's 3rd and long. And it ended up being kind of a delayed blitz. We did bring 3, but we got 0 pressure. And it got to the point where Hugh Freeze would run the ball on 3rd and 9 because he knew he could get us right up the middle on 3rd and long. So that's seriously, I'm proud of our defense. I still love our defense. I think that our defense is really good. And you know what? We found a way to win a game where we gave up a lot on the defensive end. I mean, they did. They hit us over the top for some long balls. Sure. They gashed us up the middle on the run, which is something we're supposed to be good at. But some of that comes down to scheme for me. Put pressure on the quarterback, and they won't hit us over the top as much.
It was so different when we did blitz them. So different. And it is every time. I don't know you want to do it every play.
Thomas got 2 sacks late because we let him go.
Yep. Sick him.
So it just frustrates me. That's my whole thing. I think that we have a really good defense, and sometimes I think that we limit them on what they're able to do. We've got dudes that can make plays. Let them make plays.
Hey, big question for you. What are some key changes you want to see this bye week as our Sooners gear up for the Longhorns? Any key changes you want for that game? They got 2 weeks.
I mean, I don't know that there's big key changes from the players' perspective. I agree with Dalton. Our third down defense is totally different than our first and second down defense.
Yeah.
We're on first and second down, we seem to try to put pressure on the quarterback. But then we get to 3rd and 8 and we rush 3, drop 8.
Yeah.
And our corners are playing 8 yards off and backing up on the snap of the ball on 3rd and 8. Well, you're already giving them 8 yards if you're backpedaling from 8, 9, 10 yards off
real quick.
Yeah. So I think that's a big change coaching wise that needs to happen on 3rd down. As far as anything else in this bye week, we just got to get healthy, man. We had 14 guys that have seen significant playing time or that would see significant playing time that were out, not questionable, that were out going into this game. We knew they weren't playing.
Yeah.
So we've got to spend this 2 weeks getting healthy, and namely in the wide receiver core. If we can get a couple of our wide receivers back, maybe get a Deion Burks back, maybe get, I don't know. I don't know who all we're going to get back, but I think we need to get Deion Burks back specifically. His situation is a little weird to me because they said it was just a soft tissue injury. And then the further on it went in the week, we got to like Wednesday or Thursday and he was just listed as out.
Yeah.
Originally he had been questionable, and he's out. And I'm not trying to start any rumors, but he's played 4 games this season. We all know what that means.
Yep.
If he plays in his 5th one, he loses a redshirt year, which he hadn't had yet as a wide receiver, even when he was at Purdue. So is he trying to save this year to move on to another team? I don't know, but that's kind of some of the rumor and some of the questions that are going around here in Oklahoma City, listening to the different sports talk channels that I listen to. I don't know. I feel like we just have to get healthy.
Yeah. We absolutely have to. And, Texas wants their quarterback to get healthy for sure. I say for sure. I think they're fine either way. But Dalton, let me ask you, what is Texas doing in the bye week?
I think they're trying to figure out who their starting quarterback is. I don't know what Sark's going to do. Seriously, I really don't. Like, I guarantee you there's people in his ear telling him, you got to stick with Manning. And I want to say probably in his gut, he's like, I'm going back to my guy. Yeah. I'm going back to Quinn. But I really couldn't tell you. I don't think Texas makes much changes. I think Texas is coming in very confident. I think that this is a bye week that honestly, Texas probably doesn't want the bye week. I mean, really.
I agree with that.
I don't think they want the bye week because they're playing good football. And we are trying to figure out who we are as a football team.
I think they'd rather have the bye week after our game.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be their biggest test of the season.
I hope.
I mean, looking at it now, probably. Yeah. If you said that at the beginning of the season, everybody would have said Michigan.
Sure.
Before the season, I feel like we're very similar to Michigan right now.
Say what?
I feel like we're very similar to Michigan right now.
I do too. We haven't really had an offensive identity until this last week. I'm still not sure what our identity is, but I think at this point in the season, we are Texas's biggest challenge going into the Georgia game. Because don't they play Georgia the week after?
I think so. I
think they played Georgia the week after OU game. So this is going to be a lead into that game. That's why I think they would rather have that bye then. I do like what the SEC has done. And before the Georgia-Alabama game, both teams had a bye.
Yeah.
Before the OU-Texas game, both teams have a bye. And I do like the way that they've set up the schedule. A far cry from what we got when we were in the Big 12 with scheduling and every game being an 11 o'clock game. And, we're a far cry from that. So I think Texas, honestly, moving into this game, I think Dalton is right. I think they're trying to find their identity at quarterback. And if we know anything about Texas, it's about the same thing that we know about the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL, is that the coach doesn't get to make a lot of those decisions. I feel like very often the Texas boosters step in and say, oh, no, you got to start this guy. Just like Jerry Jones, no, you got to start this guy. Yeah. So I think there's probably a little bit of a tug and war going on right there between these guys. And so we're going to see what happens. I think it's going to be Quinn. I think Quinn's going to get the start in OU Texas in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that definitely more next week. But
absolutely,
for now, I think that's their biggest question mark going into this week.
Yep. The drama has continued for Coach Hugh Freeze. This came from another podcast. I'm going to share this with you.
Is the biggest piece of shit in college sports. He should not have a job. He shouldn't probably be employed anywhere. He is a scumbag piece of shit who was able to go to Liberty and save his image and whatever. Now he's at Auburn. He's devolving now. He's like in this emotional pit of blaming everybody else. His press conferences lately have been awful. He's blaming his quarterbacks. He's saying, Coach, what do you got to do to turn this around? Well, I got to get a quarterback who doesn't throw it to the other team. Okay, you're the fucking coach. Maybe scheme up something that doesn't happen. And then yesterday he's asked about the Arkansas game, and he said, you know what, I love Sam Pittman. I hope he wins all his games, but if we play that game 9 more times, we win it 9 times. You're the fucking coach. Maybe you should have won it this time.
That's just kind of an indictment on your coaching ability.
And he's
fucked it up.
He's blaming everybody, and Auburn's now going on about 4 years of being bad, and Auburn is never bad for 4 years. They're an up and down program, but every time they go down, they come right back up. Now, I think he's lost.
I appreciate them cleaning it up for us so we can at least play it here on the show a little bit. But, I wouldn't perform well for a coach like this. How long do you give Hugh at Auburn? 15-second analysis. What do you think?
Hugh's in trouble.
Yeah.
If Hugh doesn't win 7 games this year, he doesn't have a job. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he wins 7 games. I don't think he's employed at Auburn next year. The hire, in my opinion, was a mistake anyways, but I don't think he has a job next year.
Dalton, you're a coach.
He's done.
Yeah.
He could win 8 games. I don't think the people like him there.
He's digging his own grave there.
I really don't think they like him.
No, we've seen his former players come out talking about how horrible of a coach and how horrible of a person he is.
Yep.
I don't expect him to be around much longer. He may lose his job in the middle of the season.
Interesting. We'll see. All right, time to get to the picks. Both B&D picked Texas to cover the 38.5, and you both lost that, even though they still beat Mississippi State. Brandon, you had Wisconsin plus 15.5 versus USC, but USC won by 17.
Barely. Wisconsin was so close with 8 minutes left in that game. I thought I was going to get that one too.
Dalton, you won the Oklahoma pick as they beat Auburn on the road 27-21 and lost your master lock as Notre Dame beat Louisville. Brandon, you doubled your points as Baylor could not complete the comeback against BYU. The Cougars won outright in Waco, and now there's a lead change. Brandon 14, Dalton 12. Picks and lock this week, guys. I'm going to give it to you. What do you got?
All right, I'm first this week, so I'm just going to go right off the bat. My first pick is going to Georgia. Georgia is only favored by 24 over Auburn, coming off that crazy loss. And Auburn, I'm feeling like Auburn's going to be really deflated with Hugh Freeze and Peyton Thorne. I'm not even sure Peyton Thorne gets the start. He lost this game for them in a lot of their opinions because he threw that pick six late. I think Georgia comes out firing on all cylinders. I think they're going to make some adjustments. Carson Beck's going to hold on to the ball a little bit more. Georgia's going to cover the 24 at home against Auburn. Dalton, what do you got?
All right, I'm going to go to the other team that played Georgia this weekend in primetime, Bama. They've got Vanderbilt, who I'm still trying to figure out how they're an SEC school.
Everybody has to have one. Everybody has to have one team in their conference.
They're favored by 23. Give me Bama to cover the 23. Easy.
Okay. All right. Brandon, back to you.
Yeah, that's my second pick, and I can prove it by showing you my sheet here.
Okay.
I did have 4 games that I was picking on, or that I was picking between, but I let the other game go. Alabama, definitely. After their showing last week, I think Alabama probably scores 40, 50 points in this game. And I just don't think there's any way Vanderbilt gets out of the teens if they score anything. Bama's going to cover this 23 points at Vanderbilt on the road in the SEC, and that's going to be my second win of the week.
All right. What about yours, Dalton?
I'm going to give USC one more chance.
Oh, big mistake. I tried that already.
Yeah, I know. They're favored by 8.5 right now against Minnesota, who just lost to Michigan, who beat USC. I get all that. I'm still trying to figure out, can this offense actually put up a ton of points? Because I don't think Minnesota's offense can, which is why I believe they can cover 8.5. Doesn't necessarily mean they will. It's a little bit of a sketchy pick for me. I definitely question it, but it's one I like over other games. So give me USC and Miller Moss to cover the 8.5 against Minnesota.
All right. Time for a master lock.
Yeah, my midweek mayhem master lock of the week is going to Tallahassee. You got Clemson minus 15 coming into Florida State. You got the 2 quarterbacks that used to be on the same team that are now on separate teams, but the difference is DJ Uiagalelei has thrown 2 more interceptions than he has touchdowns this year. He's thrown 6 interceptions, 4 touchdowns, only completing not even 54% of his passes. Cade Klubnik has had an amazing last couple of games, put up some really big numbers on offense. I'm going to take Clemson minus 15 at Florida State, and I'm going to throw a little bonus in there. I think they go in and they win by 3-4 touchdowns. And I'm going to say Mike Norvell loses his job in the next couple of weeks. And crazy after going 13-0 last year to turn around to this. But he really pushed for DJ Uiagalelei to come in. It was really his idea. He wanted it bad. I think they're going to see the writing on the wall, and they're going to go ahead and let him go in the next couple of weeks. I'm not saying after this game, but I think he is a midseason. He's the first midseason Power 5 fire that we see. Florida State is going down. Clemson's going to beat them by 15 points at home.
Man, him or Hugh Freeze first? That's the question.
And I think Norvell. I mean, how do you go 13-0?
Yeah.
and all you really switch up is your quarterback, and now you can't buy a win.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for me, we have the same pick. And I seriously was just, as soon as you said that, I was like, all right, I'll relook. But there's not another one. Come on. Come on. You do this all the time to me. So, yeah. How could you not? Florida State's a terrible football team. So,
they're a terrible football team. Thank you, Charles Barkley.
Yeah. Honestly, I looked at the Michigan-Washington game. I just don't know who's going to win it. So I don't know who to pick because there's a reason it's a 2.5 spread.
I was considering that game too.
Like, part of me was like, do I make that my master lock and go for double points and pick Michigan? But I can't. No, I can't pick them.
My other one was the Texas A&M Missouri game. That was my fourth game that I had listed.
Texas A&M. Who would you have picked?
Favored by 2. I think I would have picked Missouri because, I mean, A&M doesn't have Wegman. They're on their second quarterback already. Missouri's really been playing fairly good. They barely squeaked by Vanderbilt. I get it. But everybody has one of those games. I mean,
and Boston College, though.
Yeah, I think Missouri probably wins that game, but I wasn't confident enough in it to make them one of my picks. But that was the other one that I had written down on my list that I scribbled out here.
All right. Well, I'm just going to need to get 1 point this week and then tie it back up or take the lead next week.
That's it.
Yeah, probably not happening.
Before we go, I wanted to introduce something new here, if you guys are okay with that. I want to call it the social fumble of the week. You'll know the video as soon as I hit play because there's always a social fumble during college football, something that blows up on TikTok or Instagram. This one this week. Let's watch that. Hang on. Let's grab that one again. If you'll notice, you got a cheerleader from Auburn flipping through here. Wham! Can get one more shot here. I mean, clueless Auburn cheerleader with a double backflip, triple sow cow right into
who is 11?
Makari Vickers got laid out by that cheerleader, gymnast, whatever he is.
Like we need another injury. Imagine explaining that one when you got back to the locker room. Did you get hurt in the game?
Right.
No. I got hurt by the cheerleader before the game started.
Sorry, coach. I had a concussion in the run out.
I don't understand how they even let that happen, though.
Don't
the entire
either.
Team is running out. Like,
they just have a routine, and they're like, "I'm doing it regardless. This is what I'm doing. I don't care who I hurt."
That's dumb.
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, guys, you know what they say.
The weekend is good,
but the midweek's always better.
And boom goes the dynamite.